Welcome to Detroit. Doesn't matter if you have one ass cheek and 3 toes. I will beat your ass. You can drown them. And that's what we gotta be. That's who we have to be. Because that's our domain. That is our domain. Because we'll tread water as long as it takes to fucking bury you.
Takes the snap, turns, gives to Montgomery, right side, end zone, touchdown, Detroit Lions! Yes.
We are driven by Detroit.
Hello, Detroit Lions friends, fans, and family members. Welcome on back to yet another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. I'm your host, David T. Pike. And as always, we're diving on in. So, folks, obviously, we all know what this game that we've got coming up next Sunday means for the Detroit Lions. We know the importance that it has not only for the team in regards to our playoff chances, we know what it means in regards to the team as far as a number of different things. And for the game that the Lions have that's now upcoming against the Los Angeles Rams, there can be no doubt that this game is the biggest game of the Detroit Lions season. But it's the biggest game of the Detroit Lions season for more reasons than just winning the game and extending their playoff chances. Now let me say this. Yes, winning the game is the most important thing. There is no doubt on that one. You want to win the game so not only you get the win, but you also want to win it so that way you can increase your playoff chances, getting into the playoffs. That's the most important thing when it comes to this whole situation. But let's understand something here. It is not the only reason that the Lions have in which this game is important to them. It's the most important, it is the biggest reason, but it is not the only reason, and it is not the only important or big reason. The reason I say that is because this game is important to the Lions because it will put front and center everything that the Lions have done since 2021. Everything they've built, everything they have achieved, and that they hope to achieve. This is a game which has a lot of different things riding on it as far as what they're trying to do this year, what they've done in the last couple of years, and what they're planning on doing in the next couple of years. And I'm just going to call this for what it is. Some people might think I'm, putting way more on this than what it is in regards to, you know what, it's only for the playoffs, it's only for this specific thing. Don't read more into it than what needs to be read into it. I disagree. I'm going to tell you this right now. This game, let's just be fair and honest with ourselves. A loss in this game will spell an equal measure of catastrophe for the Lions, as well as jubilation if victory, on the other hand, is achieved. But I know some people are going to be like, well, David, how exactly will that be the case in equal measure, depending on if it's a loss or if it's a win? Here's how. Like I said, this game is not just going to be a game to determine on, if the Lions extend their playoff chances. It's not just a game in which, it's going to determine who's the winner versus who's the loser and things of that nature. It's going to be much more than that. And the reason why it's going to be much more than that is because there's more in this game that's being put on the line. There's more in this game that's being, competed on, judged upon, than just the team's, rosters themselves. Here's what I mean. The first thing that's going to be put front and center, that's going to be matched up against, that's going to be, going head to head, is the two teams' competing philosophies on team building. Now, I know some people are going to be like, David, how does that have anything to do with this game? How does that have anything to do with the playoffs? How does that have anything to do with the current situation of what we're talking about here? It might not in the sense of just the very basic look of the situation, but you have to understand that if you want to talk about a team that has completely done things different or in a different mindset or different philosophy than what the Detroit Lions have over the last couple of years, the Los Angeles Rams are definitely one of them, if not the one. And the reason I state that is because you have to understand how these teams got their starts ever since 2021. Both of these teams, you can look at where they currently are right now because of moves that translate all the way back to when the Lions made the trade with the Los Angeles Rams, where they sent Matthew Stafford out to LA and they got those draft picks and they got Jared Goff. Since then, the Lions and Rams have literally gone in two completely different directions about how they went about building their rosters and about how they've gotten their teams where they currently are. And one of those areas that specifically I'm referring to here that is in direct competition, that is directly going to be, viewed opposite of one another in this game because people are going to be looking at it in two entirely different measures, is in this area plus a couple of others. And again, the first area that I'm talking about is the competing philosophies of team building. Let's just call it for what it is. What has been the Rams' philosophy? I mean, I don't really have to put it any more succinctly or simply than what GM Les Snead himself said. F them picks. That's been their mindset. That has been their philosophy. It's a very simple thought process. It's a very simple concept, but it's a very powerful one. Whereas the Lions' philosophy on team building is to methodically, build the roster the way it has been through the draft. Where the Lions have been about, hey, we're going to build things the correct way, we're going to build things the right way, we're going to build through the draft, we're going to build a sustainable team. The Rams have been like, listen, screw that mindset. We're going to go with the thought process that we are going to go with, which is the exact opposite of that. Because the Rams and the Lions are completely different philosophically in team building, because the Lions have always, ever since Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell have gotten there, they have always prioritized drafting and their draft picks over any other method of team building in the entirety of how you can build a team. Of which there are three ways. You can build a team through trading, you can build a team through free agency, or you can build a team through drafting. Well, the Lions' primary mode of building their team has been through the draft. Sure, they've used other methods such as trade, they have used other methods such as free agency, but those have been speckled in here and there compared to where they have done the majority of their building, which is through the draft. The Rams, on the other hand, are the exact opposite. They are a team that very much, seeing as how they're a team that's from out west, they're very much kind of like the Old West, kind of like, hey, you know what? We're going to do, and we're going to build our team through a kind of any way we can kind of an approach. That's just pretty much the bottom line. The Rams don't really just build through one methodology. They will use whatever methodology is, in their opinion, best for whatever it is they're trying to do. Whether it's the draft, whether it's free agency, whether it's trade. But if we want to be honest with ourselves, over the last 4-something years, they have done primarily through free agency and trading than they have through drafting. Now, that doesn't mean that they haven't had good draft picks. They certainly have. But they have done more of their team building through trading and free agency than almost any other team I can think of. And, to be fair, their methodology, for the most part, has been successful. The problem is that their methodology is more of a instantaneous kind of runaround. Pretty much, hey, we are going to plug and play people into various spots and hope that we can get instantaneous results in order to get what we want right now. That's what drafting and that's what, trading and free agency does. It's like, hey, we are going to acquire veteran players right now that we can plug into what we're doing, and we're going to get the results that we're looking for right now. That's what that methodology is. Drafting, while you can get that approach, it typically is one where it's like, okay, you're drafting a player to start producing for you typically within 2 to 3 years. Because most people do not expect, unless they are a really, really damn high draft pick that has a lot of potential, has a lot of promise, and knows that they can come in and they can start producing for the team right away, which very few players honestly can do that, at least very well. That's the difference between drafting for a player and building that way versus trade and free agency. Drafting is the long road. Free agency and trade is like, hey, we're gonna bring somebody in that's already a veteran, already knows what the hell they're doing, and we're gonna just let them loose. Drafting is like, okay, that could potentially happen, but we're looking more long term here. And you have to think about it. The Rams have done this methodology any way they possibly can to improve upon their team in all and any means that they have at their dispense. And you have to think about it here. It also kind of goes opposite of how these teams are in terms of how they want to get to where they're going. The Rams are all about flash. They're all about quick turnaround and production. The Lions, on the other hand, have been more about the slow burn method. And I'll be honest here, both have been proven to work. The Rams have had success. They've had the ability to get into the playoffs. They've won playoff games. They've gotten to a Super Bowl. They've won a Super Bowl. So yes, it has been proven to work. The Lions, through their process, they have won division titles. They have won playoff games. The only thing that they have not done, that the Rams have done, is get to and win a Super Bowl. So both have been proven to be successful. Both have been proven to work. But here's what I will state. The only methodology that throughout the entire course of the NFL's history has been proven to have long-term success and long-term sustained success, thus what I mean is building dynasties, is the draft process, which the Lions have been doing and building the long way. And honestly, that's why this is something that is going to be put front and center. Because this game is going to be a direct reflection on the team's building philosophies. Because you have to think about it even from this year. The Rams have done a lot about, hey, you know what? We're going to build the way we're going to build, which is acquiring veteran talent and plug and play right now, and that's how we're going to win. Sure, they have some guys that they have developed from the start, but a lot of the guys that they have plugged and played in very crucial spots by getting them through the draft, by getting them through trade and free agency, not through the draft. The Lions, on the other hand, are the exact opposite. Almost all of the guys that are in key spots for them, they have acquired through the draft. Whereas very few have been acquired through the other way. It's just that simple. So that's one area where this game is going to have a competing mindset on it other than just two teams that are going up against one another. Then you have to take a look at the second way, which is what I would like to call competing team culture and identity. This one's a very straightforward concept. Let's think about this here. What's the Lions' culture? What's their identity? Their identity is grit. Their identity is toughness. Their identity is resiliency. This is a concept, this is a culture, this is an identity that runs deep within the Detroit Lions team psyche and mindset. It is who they are. It is what makes them, the team that they are, the organization that they are. That is entirely their mindset. That is the entirety of their culture. What is the Rams' culture? What is their identity? It kind of goes based off of the entirety of what I just said is their, team building philosophy. It's all flash, it's all excitement, but to be entirely honest, where the Lions, cultured identity is a deep-rooted one with the Lions, the Rams is all really superficial. It's all about, hey, let's put out something really quick, really fast, let's make it work, but we're not going to get too deep in on the whole culture nonsense here. And you have to think about it here. Take a look at how that is a completely different thought process in terms of the Lions. Because, let's think about it. Has anybody ever really talked about the culture that the Rams have? No, because the Rams don't really have a culture that they have really talked about in terms of, hey, this is who we are. This is what we require out of our players that come here. They don't really have a culture that has really set principles and has really set themselves on saying, hey, if you're going to play for us, you have to check off boxes more than just saying you're talented. Furthermore, the Rams have never personified toughness, at least not the way that the Lions have. Their culture has always been about being the smartest, being the shiftiest, and being the most flashy team in terms of the NFL, and that's their brand of football. We're going to outsmart you is in essence what it comes down to. We're going to outflash you. We're going to find a way to really come up with, brilliant, big, explosive plays, and that's what our brand of football is. Which, okay, that's not really a culture per se, but if that's your identity, then so be it. The problem is that it's really kind of superficial, and it's only based upon one individual pretty much giving everything to what the team needs in order to function, which, let's call it for what it is. The Rams, it all comes down to Sean McVay. That's really where it starts and ends. The Lions are the exact opposite. Yes, their culture starts with Dan Campbell, but that's not where it ends. Their culture has literally spread itself from Dan Campbell into every single person that is in that building. Jared Goff, Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery, Jameson Williams, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Penei Sewell, Aiden Hutchinson, Aleem McNeil, Jack Campbell. The list goes on and on and on. Every single person that is a part of that team, that is a part of that organization, their culture, their identity, it starts with Dan Campbell, but it doesn't end with him. They are all another link in the chain that flows down from Dan Campbell. That's why their culture, their identity, it runs deep because it's in every single player. The Rams culture, the Rams identity, it starts and ends with Sean McVay. Let's just call it for what it is, because if Sean McVay were to leave the Rams, the team would not anywhere be close to where it is right now. Dan Campbell himself has said it. He's like, listen, what I am building here, I want it to be able to last long after I leave potentially. That's why he said, if I've done my job right, if I were to leave tomorrow, the culture, the identity would stay the same. That's the difference. And you have to think about it. The Lions are the exact opposite in that phrase and in that terminology, because while the Lions have shown some flash, while they have the ability to be the smartest team in the entirety of the NFL, and they have the ability to be explosive, their identity has always been about being tougher, more resilient, and overcoming adversity no matter when it hits or how hard it does. These two identities are completely different and completely direct opposites to one another in all manners. But let's understand what it's going to mean in terms of this game. Only one is going to stand tall at the end of this game. Only one is going to, prove itself to be the best one versus the other. Pretty much it comes down to this. You're going to have either one that outsmarts the other, or you're going to have one that outlasts the other. Can you outsmart another team to get to the finish line, or can you outlast a team to get to the finish line? That's really where it comes down to here. Which then leads to the final thing in terms of the Lions' culture, in terms of their identity, in terms of what they've built here that's being put front and center in terms of this game. And this one is a little bit more personal, but it definitely is just as important. The last one is what I would like to call player faith and trust. How much trust, how much faith do you place in the players? How often are you going to stay loyal to your players? let's just call this one for what it is too. The Rams, they're very short on faith. They are not loyal to players at all. That one has been proven multiple times since 2021. The Lions, on the other hand, are one of the most faithful and loyal franchises to their players. They've stated it multiple times. If you come in here, if you do your job, if you play the way we need you to play, you will always have a job here. There will always be a spot for you. The Rams, on the other hand, they don't adhere to that thought process. They're like, hey, you know what? If it works, it works. If it doesn't, well, you know what? We'll find some other use for you. Doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be here. And again, this is how these two teams differ very greatly in yet another major area into their approach of how they've not only built their team, how they identify themselves with their cultures, but like I've said, also how they retain players. The Rams have shown that as an organization, they are not loyal to players. They are not loyal to them at all. Because think about it. What have the Rams done over the last couple of years when it comes to some of the biggest players that they've had? They've cut ties with them. They've gotten rid of them. And that's including several big players such as Jared Goff himself, Cooper Kupp, Jonah Jackson, Jalen Ramsey. These are all guys that the Rams at one point or another had, and they either traded them away or they just simply said, we're not interested in bringing you back. We're going to cut ties with you. Good luck somewhere else. That's literally what's happened. The Rams have not been big on the whole loyalty factor to their players. And subsequently, they are extremely starkly different than the Lions. The Lions have proven to be probably the most loyal franchise to their players, such as bringing in players and putting them into their system and putting them in places of big, priority that require a lot of faith and trust, and thus breathing also new life into their careers. Such guys that I'm talking about include Jared Goff, Alex Anzalone, Amik Robertson, Al-Quadin Muhammad, Jake Bates, Khalif Raymond. These are all guys that came from somewhere else, and the Lions put them into crucial spots on their roster, and they have breathed new life into their careers, and a lot of them have played very, very well for the Lions over the last couple of years. But not only have the Lions done that by bringing in players and plugging them into crucial spots and putting trust in them that way, they've also stood by those players when it's then time to pay them. And they have rewarded them by giving them contracts rather than just simply letting them go and saying, hey, you know what? Thanks for what you did for us right now, but we're going to go and find somebody else. You have to think about it. Not only have the Lions done that with Goff, not only have they done it with, freaking Alex Anzalone, but they've also done it with other players, such as Brock Wright. Go back to when we brought him in. Nobody thought much of him, but now, ever since we've had him, a lot of people have looked at him as one of the best number 2 tight ends in the NFL. He's not a starting level caliber tight end, but remember how if I recall correctly, it was the 49ers who made an all-out push to try and get him, and the Lions said, no, we want you here. We're going to keep you here. You also take a look at other guys that the Lions have done this with, maybe not to the same level as Brock Wright, but Tom Kennedy, Dan Skipper, and again, like I also brought up, Khalif Raymond. These are all guys that the Lions have brought in, and they decided to say, hey, we like what you are, we like who you are, we like what you do for our team. We're going to keep you. And they've done the same thing with other guys like Goff, like Anzalone, by giving them those contract extensions, by making sure they were kept around. That's the difference between a team like the Rams and a team like the Lions. The Lions are all about loyalty. They're all about rewarding hard work. The Rams are all about, well, you might have done good for us in the past, but if we don't think that you're as good as another player that we could potentially go and find out on a free agent market, well, you know what? Thanks for the good luck and thanks for all the things that they've done for us, but we're going to move on. And that's what I'm talking about here. It's going to be a complete competition between these teams, more than just the players they have on the roster. It's going to be a competition. It's going to be a microscope analysis of how these two teams have been built over the last couple of years in every single facet, about how they've brought in players, how they've retained players, about their culture, their identity, about their actual roster building process. Do you build through the draft? Do you build through free agency and trade? everything is going to be brought under the microscope when it comes to this game because of the magnitude that this game is going to have in the grand scheme of what this year looks like. Plus, on top of that, everything else that has transpired over the last couple of years. Because you have to think about it. Ever since Dan Campbell and, Brad Holmes and Jared Goff have gotten to Detroit, the Lions and the Rams have played off against each other. Let's see here. In 2021, they played against each other. They played against each other in the playoffs in 2023. They played against each other in the regular season in 2024. I mean, you're talking about a team that has had you're talking about teams that have had numerous confrontations against one another over the last couple of years. Well, if you think about it from that perspective, the Lions have won 2 out of those 3 confrontations. The Rams won the first one back in 2021, but since then, the Lions have won the other ones, which was in 2023 in the playoffs, and then when we played them again in the first game of the year in 2024. Now we're getting ready to do it yet again. So it's like, okay, there's more riding on this just than, okay, you know what? It's a spot to try and enhance our position in the playoffs. It's much more than that. And anybody that wants to try and say otherwise is not taking a look at the full grand picture here. They're just solely focusing on, okay, this is to help our chances in the playoffs, which, yes, that is a big portion of this whole thing. But it's only part of the rather large grand picture here. And I'm not going to sell it short. But anyway, folks, just wanted to talk about this. You do with this information what you will. So, having said that, I'm going to end this episode and say thank you all for watching yet another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. If you like what you saw, by all means, highly encourage y'all to watch the next episode. Also encourage y'all to do one of these 3 things, like, comment, and subscribe. If by chance you enjoyed this content and you had not yet subscribed, I hope to gain your subscription as well. But if you subscribed in the past and forgot to do so at the time, or you just subscribed and you not yet had a chance to do so, I want to also encourage y'all, make sure you hit that bell notification icon so you guys never miss any more content that I push out. Hope y'all are doing well. Hope y'all got some in your life that makes you happy, makes you smile. God bless, my friends. And until the next time we meet, I'll see you all in the next episode.